Hello and welcome to this information session and Q&A about the Prince Claus Seed Awards. My name is Tessa Giller and I'm joined here today by my colleague Anna Ramos-Barreto. We're coming to you from the Prince Claus Fund offices in Amsterdam, where we're based. In this session today, we'll be walking you through the details and application process of the Prince Claus Seed Awards and just a few technical practicalities before we get started. This event is going to be recorded and accessible on our social media channels in the future. And after the live event, we'll be adding subtitles to the recording. So for anybody who needs them, please do check out our social media in the coming days. Some of you have already submitted questions in advance, and thank you very much for these. We'll be answering them as much as possible as we go through the presentation. Now, some of these questions are really very specific to individual cases, and for these we'll be getting back to you via email. Please also do feel free to submit any questions either in the Zoom Q&A function here below or on the Facebook comments section, as we'll have time to answer these a bit later when we get to the Q&A. So I'm going to start us off today with a short introduction to who we are as an organization. The Prince Claus Fund is an arts and culture fund that was set up 25 years ago from the conviction that culture is a basic need, meaning that everybody should have the right to participate in cultural activities and express themselves through the arts. Since then, we provided funding in places where access to support is limited and art and culture are under pressure. We work with artists and cultural practitioners in the majority of countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean and Eastern Europe. And you can find a full list of those countries on our website, and they'll also be shared here in the chat. So when we talk about arts and culture, we really mean this in the broadest sense of the term. And we support a very wide range of disciplines, from theatre to performance arts, literature, visual arts, journalism, and very many interdisciplinary practices. For us, the factor that's more important than discipline is the transformative power of culture, meaning that the practices we support are all socially engaged. The individuals we work with, they put forward new perspectives, they create space for dialogue through their work, and they positively benefit their communities. Since 1996, we've given out awards that recognize outstanding artistic achievement in our working countries. And in the past couple of years, we've really critically looked at what the needs are of the cultural practitioners in our focus regions. Based on this, we've reworked our awards process, and as of 2021, we'll be giving out 3 different types of awards, each aimed at a specific stage of an individual's development. So these awards are the Prince Claus Seed Awards, which of course we're here to discuss today, and these are really aimed at individuals at the beginning of their professional careers. Secondly, we'll be giving out the Prince Claus Mentorship Awards, through which we support individuals who have around 10 to 15 years of professional experience to really deepen their practices by participating in one of our thematic mentorship programs. And then finally, we'll be giving out the Prince Claus Impact Awards, with which we recognize individuals who are really up-and-coming leaders and who are change makers in their field. These people are making significant contributions, both in their context as well as beyond. So with this aim of this sequence of awards, we aim to contribute to the development of creative practices and enable space for experimentation and growth. You can find more about the Mentorship and Impact Awards on our website, and we'll also share the links to those pages here in the chat. But of course, as you know, today we're here to discuss the Prince Claus Seed Awards, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague Anna here, who's going to explain more about them.
Thank you, Tessa, and thanks for everyone who is joining us today. I'll be really glad to walk a little bit through with more information about our Prince Claus Seed Awards. For some of you, you might have already started your application. Some of you might even already have submitted your applications. And some people might have just encountered this opportunity yesterday. So we'll start a little bit from the beginning, and we're going to talk about the profile of the Prince Claus Seed awardees, the eligibility criteria, contents of the application, and how to apply. And then we'll move towards a Q&A session. So each year, the Prince Claus Seed Awards will be given to 100 emerging artists and cultural practitioners in the first year of their careers. We would like to then support the career development of individuals whose artistic practice are really tackling social and political issues in their local context in the communities that they work in. But who are these people who are going to support? What is the profile? So the Prince Claus Seed Awards are specifically aimed at emerging artists and cultural practitioners who are on average in the initial 1 to 5 years of their career. They have an innovative and interesting artistic practice that has that social component that's really addressing pressing and important issues to their local countries or the communities that they're living in. And they have also received very little to no funding or support in the past, and they have not had the opportunity to engage with the international arts and cultural scene. We've got some questions about this profile. So when we're talking about emerging artists and cultural practitioners, first of all, we're talking about individuals. So this call is specifically aimed for individuals, not for organizations. And when we talk about emerging, we actually are talking about starting out artists and cultural practitioners. We don't necessarily like to associate that with an age. A lot of people are asking, what is the age limit, maximum or minimum age? We don't really like to associate that with an age. We're specifically talking about artists that are just starting out. So this could be a student that is just starting out, a very young person, but it can also be someone at a later age who have just decided to become an artist and is starting their career right now. We do have a minimum age, which is 18 to apply. That's also the legal age for to be able to sign a contract with the Prince Claus Fund, but we don't have a maximum age for applying. Another very important point that a lot of people have sent questions to us is we don't only support artists, we also include the cultural practitioners, which can also include curators, art researchers, and facilitators within the arts field in general. Now for the eligibility criteria, let's first talk about, I think what it is, the biggest eligibility criteria and one of the biggest questions that we've been getting. The Prince Claus Seed Awards is only given to individuals from living and working in our eligible countries. I'm going to ask Tessa to send here the link to our eligible countries in the chat so you can check that out. So basically, individuals applying for this call must be a citizen from one of these countries, must be living and working in one of these countries. We've got a lot of questions from people who are either from these countries but are maybe currently now based in Europe, or the other way around, people who are not nationals from these countries but are currently based in these countries and working in these countries for a long time. Unfortunately, that's not eligible. We are really looking for people who are living, working, and are from these countries. Due to the provenance of the funding of the Prince Claus Fund, we are limited to working with these countries, and our aim is to support individuals who are living and working in all of these countries. We are also asking that in terms of eligibility, all activities and expenses directly aimed at the further development of your practice and your career are eligible. So when we're talking about eligible expenses, we're talking about how can I spend the money. So the 5,000 euros that will be given to each practitioner to invest in their practice can be used, for example, to attend an artistic residency, to go to a festival, a workshop, to develop a new project, or to invest in an already ongoing project. Basically, any expenses that you can motivate, why is this investment important for you as a cultural practitioner or as an artist, and why is this sort of the right next step for you at this time to take as an individual. And of course, the latest criteria is to fit this profile that we spoke about, being in the beginning of your career, having had little to no support in the past, and really needing to take that next step. Now, the contents of the application we're going to talk about. For some of you that already had the opportunity to go through our Prince Claus Awards platform, you already saw more or less what's been required. We're talking about a complete application form that has some questions about your work, the disciplines that you're working in, the themes that you're addressing with your work, and also personal contact details. We also request a pitch, which is an open format pitch where what we ask you to answer to the question, what drives you as an artist and what motivates you as an artist to do the work that you do. We're also asking for a reference letter. That reference letter should be from someone who knows you or knows your work and is familiar with you and your work and can really vouch for the quality of your work or can say something about it. It doesn't need to be a reference letter that's directly for the Prince Claus Fund, but it can be more of a general letter that you already used maybe in the past for applying for other funds. And we have a supporting materials page where you're able to share with us as many links and attachments as possible related to your work. These are three very important points for the application that I think that really need a lot of attention for us, because these are the ways that we can actually get an idea and a picture of what is the work that you're doing, how is the work that you're doing really relevant to the country that you're at, to your local context, to maybe a community that you're based in. The supporting materials, we understand that a lot of people, because we're working in different countries, these don't need to be in English. So you can submit your portfolio if you already have it down in a different language. You don't need to translate your portfolio. You don't need to translate links or YouTube videos or anything that you're sharing with us. And we only ask that the pitch, you're really able to motivate and to answer to the question, what drives you as an artist? Now, for more practicalities on the how to apply, for those who haven't started an application yet, we ask you to create an account on our Prince Claus Awards platform. Maybe I'll also ask my colleagues who are here to share that link as well here on the chat if possible. There you're able to start filling in your application online. You're always able to save your application and come back to it later to fill it in up until the deadline. And the deadline is May 11 at midnight Amsterdam time. Pay attention with the time difference there. It's really important because now our applications go through this system. The system will close at midnight, so any applications that are sent out after this time will not be able to be accepted. Also, if you have already submitted your application and maybe during this webinar you feel like, oh, I heard something and I really want to change my application, you can also change your application after being submitted, also up into the deadline. After sending the application, you will receive an email confirmation saying that we received your application, and you're going to get an answer from us within 12 weeks after the deadline. And now I'm going to call my colleague Tessa Giller back so we can start the Q&A. And I also want to thank my colleagues, Laura Alexander and Laura Urbo, for doing the Q&A for us and helping us with all the technicalities of this webinar.
Okay, great. So we've started to get a couple of questions in, and our colleagues have answered some that are specific to individual cases directly. We have one question here that is, does the project have to be at a completion stage or an ideation stage of work? It can be a concept. You don't have to apply with the full project. The grant is really meant as an investment in the development of your practice. So if you have something that's more a concept phase, that's really, really still eligible to apply. Anna, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think that's it. This really is, as I said, an award to invest on your own practice. So if you really feel like continuing a project or starting a new project, what is the right fit for you right now at the stage that you're at, then that's eligible.
Okay, another question that I saw come past just now was about the disciplines. And I mentioned this earlier in the introduction, but for us, really, we see art and culture as the broadest range. So if you're doing fashion or you're doing photography or some design forms, like we really accept anything that is arts. We even sometimes support culinary practices. So please do sort of see it in the broadest sense of the word. Let's see. Okay, we have one here that is about the selection criteria. I think, Anna, maybe you can answer this one.
Yes, definitely. So I think for us, there's 4 criteria that are really important. The first criteria is that you fit the profile of the Prince Claus Seed Awards. We're really looking for emerging artists and cultural practitioners who are starting out, who are in the beginning of their careers, who didn't yet have the opportunity to really engage in maybe the international art scene or didn't have a lot of support yet. We're also talking about artists and cultural practitioners who are living and working in our eligible countries. So you can check our eligible countries on our website, but also I think someone already posted the link here on the chat. Third, we're talking about artists and cultural practitioners who are using their work to address social and political issues that are relevant to the place that they're at, to the communities that they belong to, and so on. So these are, I think, the most important criteria that we are having now for selection. And then we have also in our website more details about how this evaluation is going to go. So what are the different sort of steps that we're going to look into when we're looking at the application as well.
Perfect. We have another question here about the eligibility of expenses. Somebody has asked if they're able to purchase equipment, for example, as a photographer, if you would be able to answer cameras. Anna?
Yes, definitely. I think, as I said, any expenses that you can motivate as being really important for the development of your own practice are eligible. So purchase of equipment, of course, it is also, especially for photographers, also maybe for musicians, it's a really important part of the work that really, of course, affects the quality of the work that you do. So that is an eligible cost. We always ask people to, regardless of which cost you're requesting the funds to, that you really motivate and explain to us why do you think this is the right step for you, towards building your career.
Yes, perfect. Okay, we have another question in from Aya. For the supporting materials, is it relevant to include interviews that have to do with collective work that I was part of and not necessarily that it is artistic, but relates to my context and what I do generally? So yes, this is for us really relevant to see, because what we're really trying to do is to get an understanding of what your work also means in the context. So interviews are actually really helpful. So please do also add these. Okay, and Fawaz is now asking if we could speak a bit more about the references. And he asked specifically if we can submit references from an old application as well. I'm going to ask Anna again to answer this question.
Hi, yes, definitely. So it doesn't need to be a new reference letter specifically addressed for the Prince Claus Fund. We understand that you can also have like a letter maybe that you use as a general reference letter for applying for different funds. That's possible as well. The important thing in a reference letter for us is that we know who wrote it, and that the person who is writing it really has an understanding of your work and can really speak about your work and the relevance of your work. So there are some maybe reference letters that touch specifically more on sort of like more related to job applications. That's not really what we're looking for. We're really looking for someone who can really talk about the importance of your work, or maybe the quality of your work, someone who had experience working with you before as an artist or a cultural practitioner.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we have another question here that is, I have a documentary project in production stage and I want to know if this is suitable for still applying. Yes, this is. With this award, we're not looking to really support whole projects. We're really looking to invest in the development of people's own practice. So for us, it doesn't matter at what stage of a specific work you are. This is all still eligible for support. Okay. We have another question here from Lorenzo, who has an engineering background and is now an art student and working in very many disciplines, and if it's possible to apply with multiple or just one. We often support interdisciplinary projects, so we don't limit specific people to working within one discipline. We understand that especially these days, like lots of practices merge disciplines, so it's really fine if it spreads more. Anna would like to add something to this.
Yes, definitely, Ron. So you can apply as a multidisciplinary artist. In the application form, we ask about the disciplines that you're working in. You see that that's like a checkbox, so you get to check as many boxes as you want. So if you don't have to only apply as a photographer, but you can check like photography, painting, and all of the different things that you do. You can also add more disciplines as well. So it's really open in that case.
Okay, we have here a question from Veronica. That is one that we haven't seen yet. If the application is done by an individual, can the funding be used for the implementation of projects as part of an organization or a collective? Anna.
Yes, definitely. Then again, I feel as eligible expenses, if you believe like I would like to really invest this money in the developing maybe of a collective or a project that I have with other individuals, and you feel like this will be the right step for you as a cultural practitioner or an artist, then that's also eligible for sure.
Now a question from Ramzi. What are you most interested to see in the portfolio section of the application? Is there a minimum quota of works to submit? Anna.
No, there's not a minimum quota. I think for us, it's really important to have an overview and be able to really understand what your work is about and really get a big picture of it. So the more you submit, I think the more we are able to see it. But as much as if there's a section that you're also able to explain like what your work is about, and it's really nice if we're able to read it and then see an image and get some sort of a connection between what you're talking about, what your work is, and also what you submitted as supporting materials.
Okay, now we have another question. How do you define support and didn't have the chance to show work internationally? An artist might have shown work without being compensated just to be able to show work internationally. How would you determine adequate support? So I think this question is really looking at what kind of experience still for us fits into this sort of emerging artist phase. Anna, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, definitely. So I think when we're talking about experience, so first of all, we're talking about an average of 1 to 5 years of experience in the field. That's also an average. So for example, if you have like maybe 1 or 2 more years around that, that's also eligible. And in terms of artists having shown work without being compensated, supported, and shown work internationally, yeah, we understand that there's a dire need of support in general for arts and culture, but we're really looking for someone who is starting out, who hasn't yet had the opportunity to make this connection. We're not necessarily talking about international support, but also connecting with cultural arts scene internationally. So having a connection maybe with an artist from a different country or within Europe or the US, and has its practice only now for the moment at least based in their local context and is trying to take that next step. And how do we define that? I think like we look at the materials that are sent, the CVs, and we look at what has been the experience of the artist so far. There's of course, we have to select 100 of these and we get an overwhelming amount of applications. So we just have to go with what everyone sends and make a full picture of who are the people who best fit the profile that we're looking for.
Right, so here we have somebody who's asking what the time frame is within which the award is meant to be spent and the reporting. Anna.
So there's not really a time frame. When we're talking about the reporting for us, what's really important is, so if you are selected, you're going to get a letter with more explanations exactly about how we like what are sort of the requirements after receiving the grants, but we are making this investment into your practice. So because this is how we're going to do, what we would like to see in the future is how has this award impacted your practice. We would like to stay in touch with all the awardees on a regular basis, also 1 year after, but also maybe 5 years after. We would like to conduct interviews and surveys, but the reporting we try to keep as minimum as possible. We don't want to overburden you and create like reporting related on how to say, like receipts and how did you spend the money and things like that. We just really want to see how has this award created maybe a short-term impact, but also maybe a longer-term impact in your practice. So we like to say that everyone who is supported by the Prince Claus Fund is a part of our network, because we always like to keep in touch and then see like how, as Tessa said in the beginning, we have the Prince Claus Seed Awards, which are really for starting emerging artists. But we also have the Prince Claus Mentorship Awards and the Prince Claus Impact Awards, which are for people who are reaching at higher stages at their career. So it would be really amazing for us if at some point someone who gets a Seed Awards would also eventually join for a mentorship program, and then maybe even, who knows, in 10 years from now, receive an impact award. I hope that answers to the question, but if not, you can send again, and I'm happy to elaborate.
Perfect. Here we have a question about, again, the spending of the grant. Can the award be used for further studies?
Well, I guess it depends on what studies that is, where that studies is going to take place. How do you see the studies interfering with your future practice? What do you feel like, if you feel like this is the correct next step for you, how you can motivate that? I mean, as I said, if you would like to do an artistic residency, that's good. If you would like to go to maybe a more like formal education environment like a university, then I would really have to see a case by case. I don't think I have enough information to answer on that question. But yeah, it depends a lot on the study, and depends a lot on where it is. It depends a lot on how you can motivate that.
Yeah. We now have a follow-up question from Aya, who asked about what stage of development the work needs to be in before, saying that they're really at this point in the first stages of development, and how to best apply for this. I think for us, it's really important to get an understanding of your work in general. So the supporting materials you submit don't necessarily have to be the exact project that you have been working on. So you could, for example, submit some sketches of the work that you want to be sort of fleshing out with this grant, but then also add some supporting materials of work you've done before, and that's maybe a more advanced stage of completeness. So then we can really get an idea of like what your practice is as an artist. And that also allows us to understand more what the sketches mean in that development. I hope this answers. Okay, we have here one question considering the pandemic. If the fund can be used to produce digital-based art or digital-based cultural activities, in case that travel restrictions are continued and we can't do physical activities. Anna, would you like to take this one?
Yes, definitely. Yes, that would be really nice to see. The Prince Claus Fund last year also had an open call for a digital grant due to the pandemic. So we were able to support some really nice initiatives taking place in the digital world, and it would be really nice to see. It is clearly in dire need of artists are really having this need to connect right now and to create projects. And the digital world has been helping a lot with that. So I would be really happy to see some proposals for that as well. That's definitely eligible then.
Okay, now we have another question on the application assessment. If the applicants are allowed to see at what stage their application is at and when the final announcements will be. Anna?
Yes, so we have two stages of assessment internally, which is if you go through our website, we have more detailed explanation. But with the Prince Claus Fund has a group of external advisors, which is a group of 15 external advisors from different countries, different disciplines, who are going to help us assess these applications and advise the Prince Claus Fund on which applications suit the better of the skull and should be then therefore awarded. And that process together with the Prince Claus Fund will take 12 weeks. After these 12 weeks, all awardees will be contacted about their applications with an answer. And then you will not be able to follow every step of this process, but in 12 weeks you get the answer on your application. For those who will be awarded after 12 weeks, we are going to request some more information about your practice and more details. Might we need them for the public announcements that will be on the 25th of October. So for all of the people who will receive a positive reply on their application that will be awarded, they will have within 12 weeks, which is 3 months after the deadline, and the 25th of October will be in close contact, asking more questions, requesting more documents back and forth, also talking a little bit more about the reporting and how we would like to keep in touch. And then we announce publicly to the world on the 25th of October.
Perfect. This next question kind of follows into this sort of selection process. Stephanie asks how many awards are going to be awarded per country. So we don't necessarily have a limit, but of course we have 100 awards to give out. So we're going to look to support a diverse group of people. So we won't be giving 50 awards in a specific country. We're really looking to support as many different people in as many different countries as we can. Okay, here we have a question from Hani. What is the benefit of Seed Awards? Is it just obtaining the grant and extension of the project? I want to know more how I can write my motivation letter. Anna.
Hi. Okay. Sorry, I was on mute. Hi, Ani. So the Prince Claus Seed Awards is an award specifically to invest in your practice. So I think the benefit really is that you are able to apply for whatever you feel like the needs that you be feeling now as an artist or a culture practitioner. And what would you like to do? Maybe what is a dream project? Or maybe you would like to continue something that you started before. You would like to do an artistic residency, or you have to travel to go to a conference, connect to different peers. This is what I feel like it's the biggest benefit, is really you dictating how would you like to invest yourself in your own practice. And then, of course, as I also said before, a Prince Claus Seed awardee becomes a part of the fund's network. So we also really would like to keep engaged with each other. We also hope that we can create a network within these 100 people, so they can also maybe collaborate together, get to know each other better. And then you also, in the future, maybe even can also work towards receiving and participating in one of our Prince Claus Mentorship Awards or the Prince Claus Impact Awards. And she also mentioned, I want to know how I write my motivation letter. When you say the motivation letter, I think maybe you mean the pitch. The pitch is where we ask you to elaborate on what is your motivation and what drives you as an artist. You can write it, but you can also make a video, you can send an audio, you can make it like the way you can make a drawing or like a cartoon, or the format's really open. But for us, what's really important to know, it really is what's your motivation as an artist, and how do you feel, what is your contribution maybe as an artist to maybe a social issue that you're seeing now that you would really like to address, or something that you would like to solve within your work. That's for us, I think, the most important thing, to really see how your artistic practice really connects with an issue that you're seeing, or a problem that you're seeing in the world right now.
We have a question here about how often you can apply, from Julie, asking, if you've been awarded the fund last year but you have implemented it this year, how many years do you have to wait to be able to apply again for a different project? Now, if you're currently receiving funding from the Prince Claus Fund, that project would need to have been completed before you can apply for a new grant. However, if you apply to the Seed Awards this year and you receive it, you technically could be eligible to apply next year, only because we try and support as many individuals as we can. It means that you would become a less priority. So please do keep that in mind, that then there will probably be other people who will have more chance of getting the award if you have already received it before. There's no limit to the amount of times that you can apply to the Seed Awards. So if, for example, this year you apply and you don't receive the awards, you're still eligible to apply next year. And then maybe because you've had some more time to also develop your practice and maybe work on the application, you'll have better chances again. I hope that answers. And then another question from Stephanie, who asks, are there specific questions in which our artistic or cultural work is limited to for this particular grant? Anna.
Hi, Stephanie. No, there are not. There's not specific themes that we're limited to. I don't know if you had the opportunity to take a look at our application form, but we have listed some of the things that we have identified that are coming up really broadly in the work of artists and cultural practitioners that we have worked with. But we also have a section where you're able to add maybe a theme that isn't there yet, that's something that's important to you. When we're talking about themes, we just want to know, what do you feel like maybe it's something that's relevant right now in the world, or maybe it's more smaller in the community that you're based, in the local context that you're based, that you feel like it's an important social issue that you would like to address through your work. But there's no specific themes. We're actually really interested in getting to know what are all the different themes that people are working around the globe.
Perfect. I see a couple of questions coming up in the chat now about if it's possible to apply with different projects. So for the Seed Awards, we're not asking you to apply with a specific project. So what we really want to have is an understanding of your practice as an artist and an indication of what you would be spending the grant on, meaning that as an individual, you can only make one application per year, because we'll be really evaluating on the basis of your practice and not a specific project that you're applying with. So please don't start submitting multiple applications where you show different projects that you've been working on. You can show these different projects in your one application. And then we have another question here about the pitch. Somebody missed the first part of the talk and is wondering if they should only upload the pitch or also upload a portfolio with other works. So there's two separate aspects here. The pitch is really for us to understand what motivates you as an artist and what it is that you would be investing this money in. So what aspect of your practice. Then we have the additional materials where you can upload a portfolio with all of the work you've done before and really sort of showcase your experience until now. So please do also upload other work that isn't necessarily the work that you would be wanting to invest this award into. Okay, somebody asks here, how open do we need to be when we're talking about the substantial support? Do we need to express this for each project that we work with? And where do we draw a line when it comes to professionality? Anna, would you like to answer this one?
Yes, let me just read it again. Yeah, so how open do we need to be when we're talking about substantial support? Do we need to express this for each project? Well, you don't need to, I don't know if I understood correctly, but you don't need to have like a breakdown of how the support would be given to the sort of like the different projects. Again, like this is an investment in your practice, so you can also just say, look, I really want to develop this project. This is really important for me right now, yeah, and you don't need to express like for all the different, you don't need to specifically break down how you would spend it for all of the different projects. I'm not sure if I understand correctly the question, but as long as you can motivate what the project is about and why do you think this is the next step that you would like to take. This is the next step that you'd like to take as an artist, and that you would like to invest the money in that. That would be good, but I'm not sure if I understood it correctly. So maybe, I don't know if Tessa would also like to add.
No, I think maybe if it's not clear, then send us an email and we'll get back to you with another answer. Okay, we have another question here about the samples of work. Somebody who submitted one song and a piece of graphics art, and if this is enough for the assessment. We don't really have a limit of a minimum or a maximum amount of samples you can send. I would say, as a rule of thumb, try and submit something around 5, maybe 10 pieces as a maximum, just because it gives us a more broad understanding on the basis of 2 samples of work that are also both in very different disciplines. It becomes difficult for somebody assessing really to get a comprehensive understanding of what your practice is and what it's about. So I would say more than 2 is probably good, especially if you're showcasing different disciplines as well. Okay. I see we also got another question in about discipline, and we've answered this before. So we really see discipline in the broadest sense, so anything that's art and culture. I think at this point we've answered most of the questions that have come in, except the ones that are very specific to individual cases, and we'll get back to you on those via email. Please also do feel free to email us at awards@princeclausfund.com, and we'll answer any additional questions there. As we mentioned in the introduction, this event has been recorded and will be accessible on our social media in the coming days. So if you want to go back and sort of check out some of the answers that maybe you missed while we were going along, please do feel free to do that. We'll also be adding the subtitles, so for anybody who needs those, that will also be accessible after today. Then I'd like to thank you all for being here today with us, and to thank my colleagues Laura and Laura, who have been helping us with the Q&A session and filtering through the questions. And that's all from us today. So thank you very much, and goodbye, Anna.
Thank you very much, everyone who joined, and we look forward to seeing your application.